For our top story today, we're taking you to Cyprus, where EU leaders are holding an informal summit against a fraught geopolitical backdrop. Last night, over dinner, leaders discussed plans to revive the EU's little-known defence clause amid deepening cracks in the relationship between the US and its European allies. Today, they'll tackle the EU's long-term budget, and they'll also lunch with leaders from the Middle East. For more, we can cross over to Cyprus now and to our correspondent Jorge Liboreiro, who's there for us. Great to see you, Jorge, this morning. Listen, this should have been Viktor Orban's last summit, but he's decided to skip, and that really seems to be defining this gathering.
Kalimera Marit. Indeed, the longest-serving member of the European Council is not making his way to this summit. It would have been his farewell summit, so to speak, after 16 years of uninterrupted power. But as we remember, Viktor Orban was defeated in the polls earlier this month, and opposition leader Peter Magyar took over with the promise of restoring ties between Budapest and Brussels. Leaders yesterday, as they made their way to the dinner, were noticeably relieved by the change in power, because Viktor Orban has been a figure of disruption and obstruction for 16 years, and now everybody wants to bring back a sense of normalcy into the collective decision-making.
And Jorge, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, was also there, joining the leaders over dinner yesterday. And he had some very interesting comments on Ukraine's bid to join the European Union.
Yes, indeed. At first, we didn't know if Zelensky was going to make it in person to the summit here in Cyprus. But after the vetoes on the 90 billion loan and the package of sanctions against Russia were lifted earlier this week, he decided to show up in person, and his message was unmistakable. He was pushing to really speed up the accession process of Ukraine, which has been blocked by Hungary for almost 2 years now. The frustration of Zelensky was very palpable as well. He said that he needs a clear date for accession and he wants to speed up the process as soon as possible. However, other leaders like the prime ministers of Belgium and Luxembourg were more cautious. They said that they don't want any shortcuts, they don't want any fast tracks for Ukraine's accession. So my short analysis here in Cyprus is that after the end of the Orban era, EU leaders will have to finally face head-on the complex issue of Ukraine's accession with no easy answers. And yesterday, I got to talk to one of these leaders, the Estonian Prime Minister, Kristen, Michal, and we talked about accession, but also other topics that are hot on the agenda right now. Take a listen.
We will see, because always there's a chance at least for a fresh start. So it will mean that you can start again. And to be honest, I cannot see any other way that Ukraine's future is in Europe. That is definitely so. That will mean that the question is only when, not if and how.
Now, I know you've been working on an initiative to introduce an European-wide ban for Russian soldiers who have taken part in the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Why are you pushing for this measure now, and why is it so important to you?
It's not even important to me, but it's important to everybody living in Europe, because to put it very simple terms, that before the war and at the start of the war, Russia had less men under the arms than right now. So we have more men under the arms right now than at the start of the war. And we would imagine for a moment that the war would stop, there will be ceasefire, peace, and somewhat, hopefully, just and lasting peace. Fine, but what will those people do? Most of them are criminals, but they have to be treated as heroes inside Russia. So, once again, I would ask everybody that, do you want these guys near to your home? No, you don't. So that's why you have to ban them for life from Schengen.
Ideally, you think it could happen this year, or do you think it needs more time?
Ideally. It could happen. It should happen before the summer, but this is ideally. I have this kind of feeling that we will be talking about it before the summer already, but I don't know if enough decisions will be made before the summer, but I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Another issue here for this informal summit is mutual assistance. We know that the European treaties have an article of mutual assistance, 42.7. It hasn't been explored until now, but we also know that many member states like yours are also part of NATO, which has an Article 5 of collective defense. Do you see a possible contradiction between these two articles, or can they coexist?
They are coexisting because, for example, NATO Article 5 has been invoked only once from the United States, and European Article 42.7 has been also invoked once by France. So the question is about the need, and they can exist together, I would say, because usually it's pretty much overlapping what we're doing, because you need certain assistance, you need your allies to act with you. So I would say this is working well, but also we should talk about European capabilities, because as we can see, President Trump's message is also that Europe should bear more burden in own defense.
Mm-hmm. Trump has also threatened to withdraw the United States from NATO. He's been saying this several times. We don't know what's going to happen, but do you think that because of these threats that he's making so publicly, the value of Article 5 has been decreased, that it's not so powerful anymore?
I would say no to that, because, for example, when we had Russian MiGs in our space a little bit before that, certain Russian drones were in Poland's airspace, which was shot down, first time in NATO's history at that moment. At that moment, Trump's message was quite clear that America is standing to protect Baltics, Poland, and so on. So I would say that the messages have been quite clear that NATO is working, and also in Hague. We had NATO summit there, and Trump said that if Europe is sharing the burden, he will commit to NATO. Yes, I can understand that there's a lot of political messages, but the military side is working absolutely well.